Welcome back. So the conference on climate change continues today in the United Arab Emirates. Minister Barbara Creecy will participate in a discussion on funding and coal transmission. We get more now with live from our international news editor, Sophie, Mokoena, who is in Dubai. Sophie, a good morning to you. The just transition, a very critical issues. I'm keen to hear what African countries particularly are already starting to say at COP28 on the matter of transitioning.
Well, thank you, Naledi. We are coming live from Dubai. It is very hot. The sun is out, and the debates inside the plenary are also hot in relation to the transition. You know that many countries are saying that to move from fossil fuel to cleaner energy, it will affect their economies, particularly when you look at countries here in the Middle East who rely on oil. You also have a situation where the issue of coal is dominating the discussions in terms of if you want to reduce the greenhouse emissions, you have to do away with coal. But countries in the south, particularly on the sub-Sahara or on the continent, they are saying that for them, they can't do it quickly. They have to implement it in phases, and that is why South Africa has got what they call just energy transition. In other words, as you move away from fossil fuel and coal, you mustn't affect areas that are dependent on these commodities. Yesterday, the Minister Barbara Creecy cited an example of the Komati power station in Mpumalanga, where a feasibility study and research was done, and then a pilot project was implemented after the decommissioning of Komati power stations. Let's take a listen at what she had to say in terms of the negative impact to this project after it was implemented without proper consultation.
There has been in that community an exponential rise in gender-based violence. And we can speculate why. We can speculate that men who no longer have an income-generating purpose in families are experiencing frustration, and they're taking out that frustration on their family. Women who previously had a source of income and might have been in a position to extricate themselves from abusive relationships no longer have that source of income and cannot remove themselves easily from that situation. The end in mind has to be, first of all, not just the workers in the power station, because those workers by and large are skilled and they will probably find employment elsewhere. But one has to consider those who are involved in the broader value chain. But secondly, one needs to have a very specific focus on the question of the women and the girls in the community and what role they are playing in the economic ecosystem and what alternatives would be available for them.
It's very interesting, the point that she's made there, Sophie, when she talks about the economic opportunities that are available within our families, depending on how fast we transition to cleaner energy. But where are we now with how countries are consolidating their positions on global stocktake?
Well, let's start with the president. The president responded to what transpired at Komati, as you pointed out, that it is about families. Perhaps let's take a listen at what the president had to say before we get into stocktake.
What we are seeking to do with the power stations whose life has come to an end is to turn them around and see how best we can inject renewable energy, new life into them. And as we do that, we've also always got to take account of the workers who used to work in those power stations, and the communities as well, and do everything we can, yes, to leave no one behind. It is always going to be a challenge. And this one for us has been a very good test case. It's been well handled by the Climate Change Commission that I set up. So I'm happy that we've got a number of role players, unions, community-based organizations, business people in the area, who are all looking at how best we can transition from those power stations that are having to close down to more renewable energy. And I'm sure that we will, as we get lessons from this, we will transition in a good way. It might never be as perfect as we want it to be. It could have been much worse, because once a power station has come to an end of its life, it's either it's closed, shut down for good, and everybody loses work opportunities, or we reposition it so that it gets a new lease on life. So that's what we are going to be working on as we move forward.
Yeah, Sophie, it certainly sounds like the president there really wanting to, have a balanced conversation around the transition, and industrialization. You go ahead, Sophie.
Yes, now let's look at perhaps what people here had to say. You know that in conferences such as this, you have ordinary people and NGOs who are also making their voices heard. Let's take a listen at what ordinary people or delegates had to say in relation to issues related to fossil fuel.
Yeah, and we've seen some of the visuals of those demonstrations taking place. Unfortunately, we don't have that clip at the moment, but let's leave it there. Sophie Mokoena, of course, is our international news editor, speaking to us live from Dubai right here on the agenda.